If the entire world was turning into zombies around you, would you board the buses headed to a safe zone, or would you take your chances on your own? When the TSJ virus begins spreading like wildfire, Manel and his trusty cat, Lucolo, plan to flee to the Canary Islands. But with flights inevitably grounded and the apocalypse on their doorstep, Manel opts for Plan B. Stockpiling cat food, bolting spikes to his walls, and defending his solar-powered Wish.com fortress with a spear gun. In this How to Beat video, we'll follow Manel, a lawyer-turned-survivor, as he makes questionable life choices, see if we can make better decisions, and ultimately attempt to beat the TSJ virus in Apocalypse Z. Manel and his wife, Julia, are celebrating Christmas Eve with his older sister, Belen, and her kid, Carlos. Manel's being exceptionally paternal to his nephew, Julia notices. The car ride back home is awkwardly quiet until she cracks. She's upset, seeing how fatherly he is with his sister's kids, yet hasn't desired to put a couple buns in her oven. Julie is so emotionally distracted airing their marital issues that she forgets that she's commanding a 4,000-pound machine traveling at high velocity, nearly getting them both killed in a head-on. That was a close one. Well, we better get back on the road quickly. After all, it's dark, and with our car sideways, oncoming traffic's not gonna see our lights and know to pump their brakes. Turns out, parking sideways in the middle of an unlit curvy road at night to do breathing exercises was a bad idea. This isn't just Julia's fault. I mean, imagine your wife getting killed because you didn't want to stay in the pocket. Fast forward a year, and Manel's barely hanging on. His wife's gone, and his only companion is her cat, Lucolo. The news is playing in the background, warning of a new virus sweeping across the globe. It's called the TSJ virus, and things are spiraling out of control. Honestly, this is the best news that you could get after your wife got deleted by a semi-truck. Let's be honest, he was on a steep downward spiral and needed an apocalypse to slap him back into the game. Manel mutes the TV and leaves the room just before the news channel cuts to a clip of a hospital patient convulsing and raging like some sort of crazy zombie. He's late for a Facebook Marketplace meetup at the marina, where he unsuccessfully tries to sell the sailboat that he once shared with Julia. And it's a good thing too. If Manel could have pulled his chin up for a minute, he would have realized how essential boats are when the Z's show up. We all know that zombies realistically can't swim because they're too spazzy. Brad Pitt in World War Z, saved by a boat. Andy and Kay in Cargo, saved by a boat. Dawn of the Dead, saved by a boat. 28 weeks later, saved by a boat. I could go on. Nerds, I've logged almost 1,400 hours into this video sponsor, War Thunder, so you know it's legit. It's a free-to-play combat simulator where you command ultra-detailed tanks, aircraft, and ships in massive battles. What sets War Thunder apart is its unique damage model, replacing conventional health bars. Destroy a tank's tracks to immobilize it, hit the ammo to blow the turret off, snipe the driver to halt the tank, gunner to stop it from shooting, and reloader to stop any follow-up shots. All of this is visualized with an impressive X-ray effect, showing exactly what or who you hit. Every aspect, armor, guns, ammo, engines, and even crew is modeled to real-life specs down to the millimeter, horsepower, feet per second, making gameplay incredibly rewarding. If you know your tank and understand the enemies, you can send them back to the hangar one APFS DS round at a time. With an enormous roster of mid-20th century to modern tanks, anti-aircraft vehicles, planes, jets, helicopters, ships, and prototypes, War Thunder offers insane depth and variety. One of the coolest features of the game is combined warfare, deploying tanks and aircraft on the same battlefield. Wreck overconfident Panthers with your Fury 76 Sherman. Get ammo racked by a Tiger. Revenge bomb it with your P-47. Get a hole blown through your left wing by a Focke-Wulf 190. Respawn in your M16 GMC and shred him with your Quad 50 cals. The recent update, Firebirds, introduces the latest models of the F-15 and Su-34, as well as the badass F-117 stealth aircraft. It also brings enhanced graphics, featuring allowing ray tracing for lifelike shadows, lighting, and reflections. Combined with the lifelike vehicle details, it really feels like you're driving a battle-worn tank. Download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox by using the link in the description. All new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for half a year or more will receive some special bonuses. A special decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and even more gifts. On the go or don't have a PC or console? Download and play War Thunder Mobile for free on iOS or Android using the link in the description. On his way back home, he stops by the supermarket. For a pandemic that's turning people into frothing maniacs, you would think that there'd be panic, but nope. Everything's oddly calm. Government guidelines limit purchases to 2 units per product, and everyone's just going along with it. But like, why? Manel just stocks up on essentials and heads home. Bro, you should have a shopping cart full of toilet paper. How can you expect to survive with a dirty bum? It'd be so irritating. In all seriousness, at least keep an eye on what your neighbors are stockpiling for when you'll inevitably have to ethically barter with them. Back at his apartment, Manel gets a Zoom call from Belen. Her husband, a military man, tells her that they've been given the golden ticket, evacuation to the Canary Islands. They're leaving tonight, and she's begging Manel to come with them. She says that there's a flight leaving tomorrow from Vigo, but time is running out. The Canary Islands is home to the Las Palmas Naval Base, where 4 Meteoro-class offshore patrol vehicles are stationed. The Gondo Air Base on Gran Canaria Island, with squadrons of FA-18 Hornet fighter jets, and the 16th Light Infantry Brigade, which includes several light infantry regiments, alongside an artillery regiment and support units like engineers and logistics. With more military units inbound, the islands are going to be fortified strongholds. If we have a ticket to go there, we 100% should take it. Not to mention, if the military's flying people out to an island fortress, it's because the mainland is done for. Later that evening, Manel watches his neighbors pack up their cars and flee the city. His own bags are already packed. The next morning, Manel loads Lucolo into his GTI and sets off to the airport. As he drives, the radio delivers even worse news. The new variant of the TSJ virus has emerged, and this one has a mutation that shortens the incubation period to just a few minutes. At the airport, he's called to his gate. Boarding's going smoothly, until everybody starts getting denied entry with red beeps that would make Dennis Reynolds quiver.
God, I really hate that buzzer. Can we not do that?
Clock's ticking.
Phones all around him buzz with a mass civil security alert. That's not good, and you know what comes next. Panic. And that's why retention holsters exist. Realizing this is about to go full-on Train to Busan, Manel does the smart thing and gets the hell out of there. He bolts to his car and hits the highway back to Pontevedra. Unfortunately, he's not the only one with that idea. The highway's completely jammed, stretching for miles with cars barely moving, with no other option. Manel ditches his car and decides to hoof it the 4 miles back home. Side note, he totally could have straightened out his car and pulled it a bit further off the road. You're kinda still blocking traffic, bro. Just saying. By the time he gets back, it's late at night. One apartment complex has been completely quarantined, outfitted with what looks like a giant inflatable biohazard tunnel, and guarded by soldiers with G-36s. Manel watches as the soldiers drag out what looks like a zombie Hannibal Lecter. Yeah, those are not normal human noises. Safe to say this neighborhood is done for. No way I'm crashing on the couch after seeing that shit. I'm packing my essentials and going for a sailing trip. As we've discussed, water is the ultimate defense against zombies. Sure, it's no aircraft carrier, but it beats an apartment with paper-thin walls and vulnerable windows. Plus, with a little ingenuity, he could survive a while-off fish caught with his spear gun, collected rainwater, and maybe even some of his home's solar panels to keep the essentials powered. I'll admit, ripping out a home solar system and rigging it onto a sailboat would be a disaster. Harsh marine conditions, mismatched components, limited space, and weight make it unlikely to be effective, or even feasible, but it's not really necessary. A modern fully charged phone could last 3 to 6 months if completely turned off, and you would only need to power it on to send or check messages. Manel gets another call from Belen. Bad news? The airspace isn't opening anytime soon thanks to the new variant. Worse news, the military's setting up mass quarantine zones to redistribute the population and control the virus. Belen warns him not to go to these zones. Apparently, her military husband has the inside info on how poorly secured they are. She says that Belgium already tried it, and all their quarantine zones ended up contaminated and overrun. Her advice? Shelter in place. I agree. Here's the problem. Like Belen's saying, quarantine zones never work. You're cramming scared, panicky people into Fire Festival tents surrounded by a flimsy chain link fence guarded by a few soldiers. Meanwhile, supplies like food, water, and medicine all need to be brought in. Compare that to staying at home, fully enclosed by brick walls with a locked, barricaded door, relying on your own supplies and maybe extras handed out by generous mobile military units. I know which one I would pick. Manel decides to stay put. Instead of taking action, he binge watches TikTok videos of Germany getting annihilated by zombies. Scroll, people being eaten alive in the streets. Scroll, pure chaos. Scroll, a peaceful park scene. Scroll, TikTok apocalypse tips, like some dude demoing a collapsible dog cage that you can expand and crawl into if you get surrounded. I think you would be better off running without the extra weight of a giant metal dog cage on your back. But, I'm gonna be real disappointed if I don't see someone stuck inside one of these in the middle of a street surrounded by zombies. The next morning, after a whole night of sitting on this information, Manel finally decides to hit the supermarket. By now, the shelves are stripped bare. He manages to snag a couple of cans of dog food, which is better than nothing, I guess. On his way home, he raids a gas station convenience store, picking up a few more scraps, crackers, and random snacks. As Manel's leaving, chaos erupts around him. A bloodied cop, clutching his arm, sprints past and barricades himself inside the gas station. The scene outside is pure panic, with people scrambling in all directions. A second cop isn't so lucky. He gets tackled by a zombie and takes a deep bite to the neck. Thinking fast, Manel grabs a window washer squeegee. Dude, just run back home. Nice shot. From the ground, one-handed and at 20 feet after having half your throat ripped out. Pretty impressive. Manel's just lucky that the bullet headshotted the Z didn't hit him and that infected blood didn't splatter into his eyes. That's a lot of luck that he just burned up fast. When Manel tries to approach him, the cop fires off a warning round at his feet, then immediately tucks it under his chin. If you just handed the gun over, I would have been happy to do it for you. One thing's for sure, Manel should have grabbed it afterwards. It would only take a second and that pistol will 100% save his life in the future. Unfortunately, that first cop didn't appear to still have his pistol. Shame. Could have snagged 2 pistols and potentially a spare mag or 2. Back home, Manel shuts the blinds and starts fortifying his apartment. He bolts on extra multi-point locks to the door, cuts and welds jagged spikes along the exterior courtyard wall, and rigs his kitty cam into a night vision perimeter camera. But he's missing the obvious. The windows are the weakest link here, and all he's done is slap some chicken wire on the outside. Soldiers, raiders, zombies, or even his drunk neighbor could crash right through that without any effort. And those spiked walls, sure, they might slow down a zombie or two, but they also broadcast to everybody that someone's alive and stocked up inside. Determined attackers will hop over it with ease, and zombies probably won't be slowed down too much either. If Manel had bolted the steel crossbeams to the inside of the windows, he could have secured his biggest vulnerability while keeping the place still looking abandoned. The crossbeams would prevent zombies from climbing through, and he could use his spear gun to skewer their heads through the gaps and safely take them out. All it would have taken were some screws or bolts, not an absurdly convenient welding setup in the garage of a lawyer's condo. That night, the military rolls into the city, rounding people up and loading them onto buses bound for a safe zone. Sure. Manel tries to stay off their radar, keeping Lucolo quiet so his spiked fortress doesn't draw attention. Naturally, it doesn't work. Soldiers arrive at his door, hop the spiked fence like it's not even there, and start pounding on the door demanding that he evacuate. The double locks hold, but the footage from his kitty cam is a wake-up call. Watching the soldiers casually bypass the spikes made one thing clear. His defense isn't half as strong as Manel thinks. If this was a World War Z horde, or a gang of determined looters, they would rip through it in minutes. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood's completely abandoned. Manel's supplies are running low, and the cell signal's dead. It's just him, Lucolo, and the growing realization that what little he snagged from the supermarket's not gonna last much longer. At least his apartment has solar panels and batteries though, but as useful as electricity is, you can't eat it. While taking inventory, his eyes land on two things: his wetsuit and his spear gun. He ain't going fishing. He's planning on suiting up and running around to the neighborhood looking for Cheez-Its. Yeah, a neoprene wetsuit is not bite-proof. Let me just get that out of the way right now. What it is restrictive, heavy, hot, and dramatically slows you down, especially with those thick boots. Sure, it might stop some scratches or light bites, but the trade-off for mobility is severe. Jeans and a hoodie reinforced with a layer of padding and duct tape around your arms, legs, and neck, paired with shades for eye protection and gloves, would offer better protection while still keeping you mobile enough to run, fight, or parkour. Manel's pneumatic spear gun is also far from ideal. It's a single-shot weapon with a range of about 10 to 15 feet at best, and a awkward, long reload. You have to insert a spear bolt into the front and ram it down the barrel to cock it. It's like a musket. Against multiple zombies, you would be lucky to fire one clean shot, let alone reload in time for a second. Even if you do hit a zombie, the spear gun's not guaranteed to stop it unless you strike something critical, like the brain or heart. Anywhere else, and the narrow puncture wound's unlikely to stop the zombie or even slow it down. Manel really needs to at least have a knife as a backup in case he gets tackled or swarmed by more than one zombie. Most importantly, Manel needs to grab that dead cop's pistol back at the gas station. The Spanish police use a 9mm Heckler & Koch USP with 15 rounds in the mag. A single 9mm hollow point round is vastly more effective than a spear gun bolt. Hollow points expand on impact, causing maximum tissue damage, and have a much better chance to immediately incapacitate threats with each round. It's got far better range, reliability, rapid follow-up shots, capacity, and lethality. The only real downside is how loud it is, and to potentially drawing more unwanted attention. Though with the evacuation massively reducing the neighborhood population, I don't think that we would alert the horde. More like a stray Z or two, easily handled by Glock perfection. Manel gears up in his scuba suit. Armed with his spear gun, he begins scavenging the neighboring apartments for food. Looks like his luck is running out. Almost every house is bone dry. Not a single Cheez-It in this whole neighborhood. Manel breaks into another house and nearly harpoons an old wheelchair grandma to the wall. While she doesn't have any extra food stockpiles, she's not completely worthless. See, years of being a nosy neighbor might finally pay off. She'll sit by the window sipping tea and pointing out all the neighbors that are most likely to have hoarded food. And Manel will risk his life fighting zombies in the streets and ransacking hopefully abandoned homes. Tell you what, Granny's only gonna be eating my leftover scraps, which ain't gonna be much. The first house that they check only has 2 cans of peas. That's it. Not exactly a jackpot. On the bright side, one of the houses has a dirt bike. Cool, but loud. Personally, I would stick with the bicycle. Silent and fast enough. Don't get me wrong, I say we still take it. Just save the gas for when you need to make a run further away. Manel spends the next few hours scavenging, filling his bag with random leftovers. When he gets back, he dumps it out on the table like a kid dumping out a Halloween bag. Except instead of delicious candy, it's mostly junk that'll barely last a few days. Dude, there's no way all these houses are that cleaned out. Did he even check the freezers? There's always some old frozen chicken patties in the freezer that nobody wants. The highlight from his neighbor's pantry haul is some little Tykes walkie-talkies. So now he can give Gabriella field sit reps? Not seeing the point here. It's not like she's gonna come to your rescue if you get cornered by a few zombies. Manel's got one last ditch idea. That first house that was quarantined with the Hannibal Lecter zombie, thinking that the tenant turned into a zombie early enough that all his food was probably untouched, and that no neighbors would likely barge in given it's contaminated and taped off.
I'm sorry.
Well, except for that guy. Manel, maybe chill with the inaccurate quick draws on your spear gun. You only have one shot and no knife. If that was a zombie, you would have missed and it would be leaping over the couch at you right now. With that spear gun, you gotta wait till you see the whites of their eyes. Serendipitously, the spear bolt impaled some secret under-the-stairs pantry that's filled with assorted canned goods. Well, it's clearly portrayed as a lucky coincidence that Manel wouldn't have found it if he hadn't fired that shot, which is pretty stupid, because that means that Manel's been overlooking obvious food stash spots this entire time. That night, Manel and Gabriella enjoy his hard-earned feast under candlelight. Just a shame that he's not sharing it with Julia. She was way hotter. The next morning, Gabriella radios Manel on the walkie-talkie, telling him to turn on the radio. A broadcast is playing, instructing survivors to head to the Arusa estuary, where large ships are supposedly ferrying survivors to the Canary Islands, the same place that Belen and her family were evacuated to thanks to her husband's military connections. The estuary is only about a 45-minute drive from Pontevedra. At this point, you might wonder, why bother with the estuary at all? Why not just skip the drive and sail directly to the Canary Islands himself using his 20-footer? Here's why that plan wouldn't work. The Canary Islands are 800 nautical miles away. I say Manel goes back to Gabriella's, bags up all the food that he procured, hops on his dirt bike, and gives this estuary situation a scout. What? We can't take her. She's in a wheelchair. It's not gonna fit, and besides, Luke Lowe already called the back seat. It's a moot point anyway because she's already tucked herself in for that long nap. Manel's acting sad, but not that deep down. He's really just glad that she saved him from looking like an asshole. Sure, he could have wheeled her a couple miles down to the dock and sailed up to the estuary on his boat, but that would be crazy risky and not at all worth her dead weight. On his way back to his apartment, Manel gets blindsided by a ninja zombie. He's lucky it's just the one. If there had been two, his story would have ended right here, especially with no pistol or knife. The fight's a mess. He manages a double kick, gets his leg swiped, slams her through a door, and finally smashes her face into a window before finishing the job with a harpoon shot. Cool. Still rattled, Manel makes it home, pours himself a drink, and steels his nerves for the next step. The estuary plan's gonna be risky, but it's the best option that he has left. He hops on his dirt bike, saddles Lucolo, and sets off. Eventually, he hits a highway military roadblock next to one of those safe zones that's been completely overrun. The abandoned roadblock comes complete with a medic truck full of strewn supplies, a Greyhound recon tank outfitted with a 30 cal and 50 caliber machine gun, and what looks like a few armored personnel carriers behind them. Instead of stopping to peruse all these for supplies and mount one of those 30 cals to his dirt bike, or simply moving the gate to stay on the safer main road, Manel turns back the way he came in order to take a detour off into the woods. Bad call. The roads so far have been completely clear, and the military checkpoint was set up facing the direction that he came from, indicating that the direction that Manel was traveling to was likely safer than where he came from. The forest detour is significantly more dangerous. Shorter sight lines, less maneuvering space, fewer predictable escape routes, more unknowns. And he has to go way slower. If he crashes, if a zombie grabs his backpack, or if debris blocks his path while he's getting chased, it's game over. Worse, it's right next to the overrun safe zone, meaning infected are likely nearby. In the apocalypse, you don't do shortcuts. You take the long, safe way. As expected, the forest is full of zombies. To make matters worse, he stumbles into a campground. And you know what Manel decides to do? Drive right through the middle of it, of course. As expected, the campground is full of zombies. And as expected, he crashes the bike while getting chased. Uh-oh. To make matters worse, it ain't starting back up, forcing him to ditch the bike and make a run for it on foot, up a dirt trail hill, in a wetsuit and heavy boots, with a backpack full of supplies, holding his cat while getting chased by raged-out sprinting zombies. Yeah, that's not happening. In reality, he's getting run down and dogpiled. Through the power of plot, he manages to stay ahead of the horde and pop out of the forest right next to the dock where his boat is. I don't know, maybe he ran these trails a bunch in the past. Luckily, the first door to the dock is already open and automatically locks behind him. This buys Manel just enough time to spend 5 agonizing minutes fumbling with his keys to unlock the second door. No way would I waste time digging through my backpack for the dock keys in a situation like this. And honestly, the second door isn't even that tall. He could have just tossed the cat carrier over and climbed it himself. It would have been much faster and safer. If the zombies had been even a second quicker, he would have been dead. It's a good thing that they're too stupid to climb things. Worst case scenario, just jump off into the water. Again, like I said, the zombies are too spazzy to swim. Then you could just butterfly over to the boats. Once inside, Manel raids the dock store and manages to find more spear bolts. It's a small win, but it doesn't fix the bigger problem. All the good boats are gone, including his. All except for 2. Question is, why were these boats left behind? Also, the boat won't turn on. I mean, the zombie baby situation's easily solvable.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
That's how I roll.
At least the rib right next to it still runs, so he begins heading up towards the estuary. Before he can reach it, Manel is intercepted by another boat, a small group of 3 men, all armed with automatic weapons and speaking Russian. I'm not getting a good feeling about this rescue team. It's not the guns, nor them speaking Russian. It's that guy in the back smiling while Manel's being held at gunpoint. I'm trying to survive, you sick and you're somehow taking pleasure in all this? The obvious bad guys take him aboard their ship and generously provide him with a room to crash at for the night. The next morning, he's brought in front of the captain and told to point on a map where they can find various resources and supplies. Clearly the part where you prove that you're useful, or end up at the bottom of the ocean. The captain, Ushakov, interrogates Manel, asking what he does for a living in Russian. Manel's response, lawyer. Not smart. A lawyer in an apocalypse has precisely 0 value, especially to men like these. If it weren't for his translator, Victor, changing his response to engineer, Manel would have been in deep. I'd have lied and told them that I was in the Spanish military. Far more useful skills for their operation. And hey, maybe they'd give me a gun. Victor escorts Manel back to his quarters and shares a bit about himself. He claims to be a Ukrainian firefighting helicopter pilot who just happened to be in Vigo to see its famous Christmas lights when the outbreak hit. Nice story, but it doesn't quite add up. What are the odds that a firefighting pilot would conveniently end up stuck on a ship full of Russian mobster types? Press X to doubt. Victor even claims Manel's the first survivor that they found, which is hard to believe, especially since Manel's quarters have a window overlooking the water, where he can clearly see a raft of survivors floating up to the ship. 2 survivors in the first night, and you expect me to believe that no one else has shown up since the whole pandemic clacked off. Right. Adding to the suspicion, there's a notable lack of women on board. Whether they were never allowed on or something worse is going on, it's obvious that we need to get the hell off this ship. The next morning, Manel gets some food and talks to Victor again, who now has fresh bruises on his face. When Manel asks about the raft of survivors, Victor tells him that no one came on board last night. Then, with a subtle nod, he warns Manel to keep quiet. It's clear that Victor's walking a fine line between helping Manel and staying alive himself. On his way out, he sees a boat being ransacked, its former occupants nowhere in sight. It's obvious by now that this crew doesn't do mercy, and Manel's not going to last long here. Not with a conscience anyway, and definitely not while playing a role that he can't back up. He's a tool, and once he's outlived his usefulness, he's expendable. If he wants any chance of surviving, he needs to ditch this wreck ASAP and take his chances on land. In a bid to escape, Manel mentions to Victor that there's a helicopter at the Hospital Mexuero on the outskirts of Pontevedra. He suggests that they could take it and Victor could fly them to the Canaries. Bold plan, but what makes him so sure that the helicopter's even there? And even if it is, there's no telling if it's operational, or if Victor would know how to start it up and fly that specific type of helicopter. Besides, going to a hospital, ground zero for the outbreak, is pure madness. You need to leave this ship, sure, but that doesn't mean you need to head straight to a zombie hotspot on a hope and a wish. That night, Manel suits up for his escape. Instead of making a clean break, he decides to descend into the lower decks to free the other survivors first. I'm sorry, but this is a terrible idea. You have no clue what the guards will do if they catch you. Well, you do. And attempting to herd a group of panicked, noisy, and likely wounded survivors up to the deck is just begging to be spotted and gunned down. There's no way that this ends well. A smarter move would be to scope things out first. Slip down in your pajamas. Pretend that you're stretching your legs or getting some fresh air. That way, if you're caught, you can play it off. You know, it's the whole, I was just looking for the bathroom trick. And, as expected, things go up. One of the survivors immediately starts yelling. Imagine having zero survival intuition. At this point, I say we harpoon this guy ourselves. Well, that works too. Sure enough, they get caught. Just as things are about to go sideways, Victor steps in to de-escalate the situation. The guard, for reasons unknown, telegraphs his intention to shoot Manel by dramatically pausing and making a loud thunk noise with his gun, which gives Victor just enough time to leap into action, disarming the guard and choking him out with a rope. Meanwhile, Manel stands there like a bystander in his own escape plan. Bro, do something. Go for the gun. Grab the spear gun. Anything. Shots have already been fired, which means the clock is ticking. People heard that, and they're coming. You need to move and be ready for when reinforcements arrive. I say go for that orange barrel on the deck that they were passing out guns from earlier. Maybe we get lucky and make out with a bunch of automatic rifles. Of course, this idea never occurs to them. The three of them manage to make it topside and sneak aboard one of the spare boats. But of course, things don't go smoothly. The dude that they freed gets mowed down almost immediately. Hey, better him than us. Somehow, despite having the high ground and automatic weapons, the two guards firing on them failed to kill everyone on the boat. Victor takes a hit to the shoulder while wildly mag-dumping the Uzi, and miraculously the boat, despite taking what seems like 60 bullet holes, doesn't sink. I guess they were close enough to shore to limp there without filling with water. Once ashore, they stumble upon a campground with a handful of vehicles. The only one in working condition, naturally, is already occupied. Good thing Manel brought along his trusty Autoject 9000. Finally, they arrive at the hospital, only to find, surprise, no helicopter. What they do find is a swarm of zombies. Not sure how Manel managed to hit anything with that spray and pray Uzi action. Somehow he smoked 5 zombies with whatever was left in the mag after Victor dumped half of it back on the boat. Personally, I'd have gone for a different approach. Maybe run them over first or pull a quick U-turn to put some distance between us and the horde. But then Manel drops the Uzi, just drops it. As if there's no conceivable way that he might come across 9mm ammo ever again. A baffling choice, considering the most common sidearm in the Spanish police service fires a 9mm. Any dead zombie cop could have been carrying spare ammo, but what's done is done. That chaotic display of noise has definitely attracted more unwanted attention, so it's time to move. And their next move? Instead of scouting for safer options, they decide to enter the hospital, the place that almost certainly housed hundreds, if not thousands of infected people, and probably still does. No doctors, no nurses, no helicopter, just zombies. So why are we here? Oh right, some convenient plot device. Thank goodness Manel brought glow sticks to light the way. Wait, didn't he have a super cool thigh flashlight earlier? What happened to that? Meanwhile, Victor, clearly worse for wear, insists Manel take the bullet out of his shoulder. Okay, with what? How? This whole place is infested and unsecure. A group of zombies could walk in at any time. With no helicopter in sight, you have to wonder if this is the best use of their time, of Manel's time. Maybe we just ditch Victor and escape on our own. And then, because why not, Manel lets his cat out of the bag. Great. I can't wait to see you chasing Lucolo around the entire hospital while dodging Zeds. While poking around the hospital, Manel hears the faint sound of children through the vent. Naturally, he tries to talk to them. Apparently, there's a couple adults up there too, and they're holed up on a safe floor. Manel barely gets off his sit rep before he's ambushed by a zombie. He kicks out its leg, dives behind a nearby counter, and why not just spear it right after the leg sweep? That extra gymnastics routine was completely unnecessary. The noise draws more infected to his location, forcing him to sprint through the hospital's maze of halls, somehow managing not to get lost. He eventually makes it back to the operating room where Victor was, and slams the door shut. Luck is on his side once again. The door has double handles and just so happens to have metal bars lying on a tray right next to it that he's able to jam them with. A close call, but now Victor and the cat are nowhere to be seen, which is totally a problem. Out of options, Manel hears a voice calling to him from a small pass-through door, probably an equipment transfer hatch common in operating rooms. I don't know what I'm talking about though. A woman urges him to climb through, and they narrowly escape as the horde busts into the operating room. Let's be real. If these people didn't know the layout and weren't actively trying to help, Manel and Victor would have been This wasn't survival skill, it was sheer unfiltered luck. Once safely upstairs, Manel meets the new crew, a nurse named Lucia and a surgeon nun named Cecilia, who immediately gets to work on Victor's shoulder. Wow, more luck. Lucia explains to Manel that the helicopter that they were looking for isn't gone after all. It's parked out back. The problem is that the only way to safely get there is through the underground tunnels beneath the boilers. Oh, and a recent explosion down there may have made the path impassable. Cecilia delivers more bad news. They're nearly out of food too. But wait, there's more. The Russians are here. Wait, how did they know Victor and Manel were here? Or was this supposed to be coincidental, that they needed more band-aids at the same time that Manel and Victor were here? I mean, Manel never said anything about a hospital nor helicopter. I suppose that they thought they might have hit Victor and figured Manel would take him to the hospital for treatment. Makes sense, right? Except for the part where the hospital is, closed and crawling with zombies. Why are they so obsessed with Victor anyway? For all they know, he could have bled out from a critical hit hours ago. Risking their lives to track him down seems like a stretch, especially when there's no guarantee that he's even alive. I say just hide and wait for the Russians to give up and leave. Except there's one problem. Manel dropped the Uzi right next to their abandoned car. The car alone isn't definitive evidence that Manel, Victor, or anyone else alive is still inside the hospital. Anyone could have left that vehicle behind. The Uzi, though, that's a dead giveaway. And really, what kind of idiot would drop a perfectly good Uzi? Only a zombie would do something that stupid. With the Uzi sitting there, it's obvious to the Russians that Manel and Victor could still be inside, meaning that they're gonna need a better hiding spot. The underground tunnels are the logical choice. Manel rushes back to the group and warns them. They agree to head for the tunnels, but here's where they mess up. They think that they need to beat the Russians to the helicopter, but why? Victor should know if the Russians even have another helicopter pilot. It's doubtful that they do, and if they did, it's also doubtful that that pilot would be part of this raid, especially if the Russians didn't know about the medevac helicopter in the first place, which they wouldn't. Realistically, they don't have much use for the chopper anyway. They've got a solid operation going on their ship. Trying to integrate with the military in the Canary Islands seems unlikely at best. Then there's the issue of the helicopter startup time. Helicopters don't fire up like a car. This one's likely been sitting cold for a while. In emergency situations, the absolute fastest that you're looking at is about 5 minutes if you've got a trained pilot who knows the controls. That includes a quick engine warm-up to prevent catastrophic failure and bare minimum pre-flight checks. More realistically, you're looking at closer to 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes of the engine roaring to life, rotor spooling up, and all the zombies in the area screeching like wild hogs. It's also 10 minutes for the Russians to figure out where you are and storm the pad before you can take off. In short, it's a noisy, time-consuming process that's more likely to end with you all dead than flying off into the sunset. Again, I say we wait for them to leave. then try to take the chopper. Sure, the Russians could attempt to disable the helicopter temporarily by removing key components, but it's still not worth the risk of trying to front-run them. Manel's crew continues on through the tunnels until they run into a jammed door, which Lucia starts whacking away at with the axe. Manel really needs to have that spear gun at the ready, and everyone else far back. This is an uncleared, potentially zombie-infested tunnel, and if there was a zombie on the other side, it's sure gonna be about all that banging. Poor Cecilia. You know she thought that she was the safest in the back of the group. Lucia steps up and slices the zombie's spine clean. Cecilia knows what's coming and does the honorable thing, quietly walking off to die alone in a dark corner. The next obstacle's even worse. A chain link fence splitting the room with a door at the far side that they need to get through. Unfortunately, the other side is full of zombies. Lucia suspects that the door might be locked from the outside, so Manel moves up to cover her with his spear gun. Yeah, not the best idea. You fire that thing and that entire horde is gonna swarm you. What's the plan then, Manel? Take on a dozen zombies while reloading your single-shot spear gun? He should have stayed back, holding the first door open to ensure a clear retreat route should things go horribly wrong. I mean, who's to say that door number 2 doesn't have a zombie behind it as well? Lucia finally gets the door open, and the kids start filing through one by one. But of course, the last kid freezes, staring at the horde on the other side of the fence. Among the zombies, she spots her mom. When the kid gasps, a peeping Tom zombie locks onto the group. Thankfully, Victor pulls the kid down and clamps her mouth shut before she can scream or get spotted. Honestly, he should have yanked her back the second she stopped moving and started staring. Nothing good was ever gonna come from that. Manel quickly pulls back to secure the kid, keeping her calm while Victor makes his escape through the door. With the group safely through, it's now down to just Manel and the kid. Unfortunately, the peeping zombie catches them. Manel rushes the kid into a nearby storage cabinet, conveniently large enough for the both of them and somehow completely empty. It works, for now, as the zombies swarm the cabinet, clawing and snarling just outside. They're safe, but now they're stuck. Miraculously, the cabinet ends up riddled with bullet holes, yet Manel and the kid somehow emerge completely unscathed. Not even a graze. As the dust settles, the Russians begin sweeping the area. Yep, they're checking the bodies to see if Victor or Manel are among them. If they found that operating room upstairs and noticed evidence of a removed bullet, they'll definitely know that Victor is still alive, hiding somewhere with other survivors. Then again, it's also possible that Manel's group has already slipped out of the hospital entirely and holed up somewhere else, like a nearby convenience store, meaning the Russians could still give up their search anytime now. Pushing forward, Manel and his group finally reach the door leading to the helicopter. Except the landing pad is swarming with zombies. The obvious move? Wait for the Russians to clear the area while searching for Victor, and then take the chopper once they've moved on. Instead, they decide to take matters into their own hands. And Manel's big plan? A ball wagon phalanx. No roof, porous walls, held together by cloth straps, against an entire horde. The group's weapons include a fire extinguisher, an axe, and Manel's trusty spear gun, with like 3 bolts. Really? Forget the fire extinguisher. Grab a pipe, a crowbar, or literally anything capable of dealing actual damage. Here's a better alternative. Climb on top of these cargo containers, traverse to the interior of the fence, and low crawl next to the concrete barriers toward the gate. Make sure the gate's secured, and then buy Victor enough time to get the helicopter started. But nope, they roll with the wagon plan. Predictably, the wagon hits a piece of debris, which causes the zombies to finally notice them. And just like in All of Us Are Dead, the situation becomes grim very quickly. Wait. A wheel bumping into some debris is what gets the zombies' attention. Not the loud squeaking wheels, the rattling cage, or a big group of people crammed into a giant steel open contraption rolling through the middle of the courtyard. Dude, these zombies are napping. Against all odds, no one gets bit or killed, and they somehow make it to the helipad. The gate, of course, is padlocked. Thankfully, Lucia steps up with her axe and makes quick work of it. The group squeezes through, slams the door shut, and even manages to chain it back up without getting their fingers scratched. Victor, Lucia, and the kids scramble into the helicopter while Manel stays behind, using the last puff of his fire extinguisher to hold off the advancing horde. As zombies begin swarming and climbing onto the helicopter, Manel does the unthinkable. He jumps out like Leonidas, taking the fight directly to the zombies. Meanwhile, Victor frantically hotwires the chopper, connecting wires under the dash in a desperate attempt to get it running. Just when it looks like they might actually make it, the Russians show up with their guns drawn. At this point, it looks like game over, but in an uncharacteristic turn, they don't immediately kill Manel. They hesitate just long enough for Manel to swing his axe and break the chain holding back a flood of zombies. I'm just thinking how awkward it would have been if the chain hadn't snapped. Imagine swinging that axe and just crickets as the Russians turn the firing squad on him. Lucky for Manel, he busted on the first try. The Russians hold their ground just long enough to take out a good chunk of the zombies before being overwhelmed themselves. Manel then shoves open the gate that he was hiding behind and chops up the remaining stragglers. Jesus, that's some Spetsnaz sh*. And here I thought Manel was a simple lawyer. I expected him to jump into the helicopter like James Bond swinging onto a satellite dish. But no, he climbs up a slow, creaky safety ladder instead. A little anticlimactic after that Spartacus scene, but whatever. Manel finally makes it on board, but there's one big problem. In all that fighting, he got bit. Just kidding. Everyone makes it out alive. Just as everybody's getting cozy mid-flight, Manel gets a message from Belen warning him not to come to the Canaries, right as a pair of Eurofighter Typhoon jets scream past them. While the Typhoon isn't a nuclear-capable aircraft, a pair of them can still carry enough munitions to annihilate any infested safe zones with a few Mark 84s per aircraft. So now the big question, with the Canaries out of the picture, where do they go from here? Prioritizing islands is definitely the smartest move in this scenario. If Manel and his group want the best shot at survival, Madeira's probably their most realistic and safest option. It's close enough to be within helicopter range, isolated enough to avoid major outbreaks, and large enough to offer resources for survival. Ultimately, while Manel made some questionable decisions and relied heavily on luck, he has survived so far. It looks like we'll have to wait for the sequel to definitively say whether or not Manel could have survived the TSJ virus. Moral of the story, don't trust Russians with Uzis.